We are starting masechet megillah, daf yud aleph. Okay, so we're starting in daf yud with base in the bottom. Rav Abba bar Kahana. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Rav Abba bar Kahana posach lo pischolei parshas mehacha. So a lot of times you're going to say the words posach lo pischolei parshas mehacha because the Gemara currently is bringing us a bunch of different rabbis, each rabbi how they would have their opening to the megillah. When they would want to speak in public, how would they start? How would they start the megillah? So, so who is this person? זה מרדכי צדיק. ולאחרית דנוסן עניין סוף הלכנוס. זה המון. לוסיס לתור לפני אלוהים זה מרדכי ואסתר. To give good. To give the goods of the Russia to people that are in front of God. Who are these people? זה מרדכי ואסתר. דכתיב ותשם אסתר את מרדכי הבייס Haman. So we see that the verse Mamish happened to Mordechai since he received all the good of Haman. Rabbi bar Ofran pasal Rabbi Israel parshas mehacha. Sadik is ide elam evadati misham melech v'sarim. Who's melech v'ze Vashti. V'sarim ze Haman v'zer zbanav. Rabbi bar Yitzchak pasal Rabbi Israel parshas mehacha. Ki avodim anachnu uvavdusenu lo azvanu Eloheinu ve'at aleinu chesed lifnei malchei paras. So the verse is saying that God, even when we were slaves, God saved us. Emosai, Bisman Holman, Hochanin Bakobe Pasal Piskola Parshas mehacha. Hirkavta enosh leroshenu, banu bo'esh v'mayim. So that God saved us in times of esh and in times of mayim. The Gemara will explain be'esh. What is esh? B'yamei Nebuchadnezzar Arosha. When Nebuchadnezzar wanted to kill, when Nebuchadnezzar wanted to hurt, to throw the 3 tzaddikim into the Kivshan Esh, they were saved as in a miracle. So that is the miracle of the fire. Now we have Ulamayim. What is Mamayim? We made Paro in times of Paro when they wanted to throw the Jews into the water. So that happened in times of Paro. But what does that mean? Times of Bimei. So the verse is talking both about the times of Nebuchadnezzar, when they threw into the furnace, lost the name of the 3 Nevi'im. They threw it into the furnace and they survived. They talking about times in Egypt when we survived the water, and it's talking about Haman when we survived his brutal Auschwitz that he wanted to do to us. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan pasach pischolei parshas mehacha. Zochar chazdoi ve'emunato lebeit Israel. Rahu chafsei haaretz es yishos Eloheinu. Emosai. When will we see the greatness of God and God defending the Jews? Reish Lakish pasach pischolei parshas mehacha. Ari nohem v'dov shokek. It says in the verse that a lion is nohem, has its noise, and the dov shokek. Dov also, the dov is the bear also has its noise. It yells. Shokek is to yell. Moshel Rashal Amdal, and it controls a nation that's dal, that's poor nation. So the Gemara will explain it in the verse. Ari nohem v'dov Nebuchadnezzar Rasha. Dichtibe ala rim misubcho. Dov shokek, who's the dov? Zeh Achashverosh. Dichtibe aru ve'aru chayva acharit tinenu dam eladov. What is the Elu policy? The verse that's talking about one of the visions, and one of the visions were the bear. The bear is actually a presentation of the Persians, Palasim. Why? Why are Persians called Palasim? She'ochlin v'shatim kadov. They eat like a bear eats. And they're fat. They're people that are naturally fat, like bears. And they're very hairy, just like bears are very hairy. And they don't sleep well, like bears don't sleep well. Bears hibernate, but outside of that time, they don't usually sleep well. Okay. What does it mean in the verse Moshel Rasha? Zehaman al-Amdal Elo Yisrael Shedal Elo Mitzvahs, because they're empty of mitzvahs. In that time, the Jews were empty of mitzvahs. Rabbi Elazar pasach Rabbi Yitzchak parshas mehacha. Ba'atzalta imacha mikore v'shiflu sedamid lov habayit. So the verse is talking in Koheles, I believe, talking about when a Jew doesn't take care of a small issue, then the whole house will collapse on him. That's the literal translation. Now, what is it actually talking about? Says Gemara, what is it a small issue that isn't being taken care of? Says Gemara, b'shvil atzlus Because the Jews did not take care of Bittul Torah, because they were Mevatel Torah, so God Kivyochel became poor and he couldn't redeem them and save them from the bad, from the Rishayim. The word mach is always a reference to the poor people. If a person is too poor to give their actual erech, they can give a cheaper sacrifice. And also there's the whole Gemara B'Mitzia in, I believe, Perek HaMakabel, Kof Yud I think, or Kof Yud Gimel, that explains exactly this entire verse, or Mishim Gamliel, Rabbanan, this whole machlokas. What does this mean, and what do we do when somebody cannot pay up the bills for an erech that they promised? An erech is when somebody promises their value, or anybody's value to the Beis HaMikdash. It's actually a whole masechet called Erechim in Seder Kachin. Ve'ein mekoreh, the word mekoreh, en HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shneimar ha'mekoreh b'mayim aliyotav. So we know that the verse is talking about God being poor and not being able to redeem the Jews. Rav Nachman posach lo pischa le'pachas ha'mehacha. Shir amanu zirei Hashem shehoya lanu li'omanu Yisrael. V'lei Hashem she'aya lanu makom aleinu Adam. So we see that God saved us from Adam v'lo melech. Who is this Adam? Who did God save us from? That's an Adam, not a king. That's Haman. Haman wasn't a king. He was an Adam. What is it talking about? So it said, it really happened to tzaddikim in Sarah Mordechai and Esther. The city of Shushan were very sad since Haman had declared that he wanted to kill all the Jews. He had his own way of opening the parsha, starting the megillah. Since Haman, what did Haman say? There's an am-fuzal mufurad, that the Jews are dispersed. So basically God left them, they did something mitzvah, God ignored them. So here, guys, this verse is the verse that also disproves the Christians. Christians say that God left the Jews, right? This verse shows that the way God interacts with the Jews is always in the way of kiruv, that always next to us. He doesn't ever leave us. He always stays next to us. Even when we sin, he still stays next to us. And this is in the written Torah. So, Mamish, the Torah itself says that this is the way of God. Over there, it's talking about the Egyptians and the Midah Keneged Midah. So also Haman, he also received that same Midah Keneged Midah. The day he wanted to kill the Jews, the day we killed him and the Persians. What does it mean, the word Vayehi? Why does it say Vayehi? Vayehi. It's a sad day. What does it mean? Times of the Greeks. When I show myself, in times of Mashiach, in front of Gog and Magog, then people will see I am God. Mamash. These are the three Navim that I was trying to explain earlier with the fire, so I forgot the name, I totally lost it. It's Hanan, Mishael, and Azariah. That they were thrown into the pit of fire, but in Nebuchadnezzar they survived. So that's what the verse is talking about when it says Lo Me'astim. Yeah? This was an open revelation that happened in front of Nebuchadnezzar. V'lo ge'alti mimei Yavanim, shemati lam Shimon HaTzadik, v'chashmona'i banav, and Matityahu Kohen Gadol, that they beat in the miracle of Hanukkah against the Greeks. Next piece. Lechalotam mimei Haman, shemati lam Mordechai v'Esther, lecha b'risitam mimei Parsim, shemati lam. In the time of the Persians, right? The Jews, in times of Mashiach, nobody will have full control over everything, and will be able to touch us. So guys, what is the word Achash? What does the name Achashverosh mean? So we're going to have 4 different explanations to what the name Achashverosh means. First one, Amarav, Achiv Shel Rosh, Ben Gilo Shel Rosh. Who's Rosh? Rosh is talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Saying that Achashverosh, right? Ach LeRosh, Achashverosh. Achashverosh and Nebuchadnezzar have a lot in common. So, אחיו של נבוכדנצר ראשו, שנקרא ראש, שנאמר, אנטו ריש לידי הבא. בן גילו של ראש הוא הרג. Achashverosh was a killer who ביקש להרוג, so was Nebuchadnezzar. Who החריב, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Bais Rishon, who destroyed? Nebuchadnezzar destroyed it. When he conquered Jerusalem from Tzidkiyahu Melech. Then who, and also Achashverosh, people don't know this, but Achashverosh also wanted to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. Bikesh la'achariv, shenamar, it says in the verse, in Ezra, ומלכוס אחשוורוש בתחילת מלכוס קוסמי סיטנה על יהודה וירושלים. He wrote a sitna. Sitna is a decree against the people of Yehuda to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. So our first shot is now, what does name Achashverosh mean? Name Achashverosh is referring to Achashverosh, the brother of the Rosh of Nebuchadnezzar. ושמואל אמר, שהוא שחרו פנים של ישראל בימיו כשולי קדרה. Achashverosh is like shachol, like blackened. He blackened the faces of the Jews in that time, like a pot, like the back of a pot. Everybody who would say his name, they were like this to their head because they hated him so much. The fourth and final explanation. Rashi means poor people, so he made everybody poor with taxes. Mas means taxes. Hu Achashverosh. What does it say the word Hu Achashverosh? Who begishu b'tchilato b'tzofo? He didn't do tshuva. Who Esav, sitting with Esav, who begishu b'tchilato b'tzofo? Who dotam aviram? Hen berishan b'tchilato b'tzofan. Who Melech Achaz, who begishu b'tchilato b'tzofo? The king Achaz was also very evil, never did tshuva. Avraham, who b'tzidko b'tchilato b'tzofo? Who Aaron u'Moshe? Hen b'tzidko b'tzofan. They always run the derech. Now it says about King David. David hu Katan, and David was the smallest. Who b'katanuso b'tchilato b'tzofan? From the beginning to the end. Where was it in the beginning? כשם שבקטנוס יקנה עצמו, אצל מי שלא יאמין בתוירו, but Mephibosheth, he was always humble and very Mephibosheth. ככה מלכוסי, so too once he was anointed as king, after Shalom Melech, הקנה עצמו אצל מי שלא יאמין ממנו בחוכמה, which is Achitophel, because Achitophel was an absolute genius, and we know even when Absalom conquered, kicked out his father from Jerusalem, Absalom also used Achitophel. Achitophel was mamash, very, an absolute genius. He had a very sad ending. He killed himself and he ended his life very badly. He was more of a malchus against King David. Okay. Ha-moilech. It says that Achashverosh says ha-moilech. It doesn't say that he was melech. That was king. What is that extra wording coming to teach us? So there's machlokas. Omar Rav shemalach ba'atzmui. Rav says he made himself a king. So nobody anointed him as king. There wasn't like a democracy or a voting system. He just became king. So there's a machlokes about this. The Gemara says, some people say this was good, some people say this was bad. This means that he was the most important chashuv person in the area. That's why he was anointed king. That's why nobody stopped him. But he wasn't supposed to be king. Because he gave a lot of money, paid off people, that's why he became king. It says that he ruled from Hodu Kush. Some people say that Hodu Kush means Hodu is on one side and Kush is on the other side. He controlled the entire world. So why do we teach us that he's king from Hodu to Kush? They're right next to each other. To teach you, Keshem, just like Hodu Kush, כך מלך מספר לו בצויפוי, כיות ודברות אומר, כי הוא רודה בכל עבר הנאור בתפסח ועד עזה. Yes, this is said in regards to Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech had control from Tifsach to Aza. So the same style of machlokes. Rav Shmuel Chama Tifsach Misaf HaOlam, Misaf HaOlam, A'az Misaf HaOlam. Chodom Tifsach HaOlam, B'had Yadadeh HaOlam. They're right next to each other. So what's the chiddush in controlling two areas that are right next to each other? To teach you, Kashem Shemalach Tifsach HaOlam, okay. Now it says about Achashverosh that he controlled 127 different countries. The issue is that there's extra wording, as in we already know this since it says Hodu and Kush. So why does it? There's obviously at least 127 countries in there. So why do we add 127? So I'll tell you like this. First he controlled only 7 countries, then 20, then he had 100 countries. So if this is true, So guys, Lamaisi, he only had 100 countries. He didn't have 127. How's it Gemara? If this is your style of drasha, so also in the other verse in Shmos it says Sheva Shloshim Machana. Maybe say the same thing like 7 years, which was 30 years, which was 100 years, and instead of saying 137. How's it Gemara? Shiny Hocho, it's different in Achashverosh because we just said the Kroy Yisiru. Michti Tiv Nod Kush. You could have said from Hodot Kush. Sheva Besrim November Dino Novadi. Shmona Drasha. Sounds like Gemara. Tanu Rabbanon. Shlosha Malchum Bekipa. Three people controlled the entire world. Who were these three people? Veluin Achav. King Achav is a very evil king. Times of Elijah the prophet. Eliyahu. V'Achashverosh u'Nebuchadnezzar. Achav Dechtiv. So we're bringing proof. Chayesh Melehecho. It's when Eliyahu was being informed by one of the prophets that Achav was looking for him, and he made a shavua, he made a shavua in God's name, a God that he looked for him in all of the cities that he controlled, his whole mamlacha. So if he's talking about his whole mamlacha, if he's saying that the entire world, he's calling it his whole mamlacha, sounds like Gemara. So the fact that he made a shavua in God's name, saying that Achav sent to his own kingdom around the entire world, it means that he literally had control over the entire world. Otherwise, he wouldn't make a shavua in God's name. He was a tzaddik. He wouldn't do that. Such a thing. Next piece. Nebuchadnezzar. It says about Nebuchadnezzar when God was saying that he's going to anoint. God was going to make Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babel. It says, saying basically that he's going to have control over every king in the world. Which means, so we see from there that Nebuchadnezzar controlled everything. Achashverosh, and I've already explained about Achashverosh, he had from Hodot Kush, which would reference the entire world. As the Gemara, these are the only people that ran the entire world. So the Gemara, what does that mean, There's a famous story, I believe, in the Gemara in Gittin that says that the demon Ashmedai took control over Shlomo Melech and kicked him out of his palace. So Shlomo Melech, at the end of his days, died as a peasant on the street, whereas Ashmedai took his body form, and was the one controlling things in the palace. So Shlomo Melech never finished being a king. That's why we don't really consider him as one of the men who controlled the whole world, because he had a very bad ending. Says the Gemara, this is the machlokas though. According to the opinion that he regained his kingship towards the end of his life. Says the Gemara, no. He had a different story. Shemolach al ha'elyonim ve'al ha'tachtoinim. Controlled the elyonim and the tachtonim. He controlled also angels and trees and demons, which is why he was in a different league. We're talking about kings who control the world, the physical world. Shlomo Melech had control over the physical and the spiritual, which is why he's totally irrelevant that we don't even talk about him. Asking Mara, wait, there was also the king Sancheriv. So we see that Sancheriv also had control of all the world. As Mara Beke Daravesh, הכתיב את דרבש מלכו כזר לכל הממאי ומאי ולשניות דידאיר ומכונה שלמה חוני יזגי. So he wrote to all the nations because he controlled all the nations. So the Gemara, he could have done הכתיב שטרתו דרבש והקים למלכוס להשתפניה 120. He only had 120 out of 127. Says the Gemara, ויקה קורש. דכתיב, this is about Koresh, כה יאמר קורש מלך פורס, כל ממלכות אורץ נוסן לי השם. So we see that God gave him everything. Says the Gemara, no. There he was just being mistalbet, he was being a balgai, but telling God gave me everything, I have the whole world, but really he didn't. Okay guys, for the next piece, so we're going to first of all need to know a little bit of history. I would highly recommend, this is going to be a tricky daf. If you don't understand the first time, I would highly recommend to recap and restart the video from where I start this part, mamish. You need to know the exact mapping. The Shakal is going to be complicated. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. So, first of all, guys, we have two key parts. There are the kings of Babel and then the kings of Pras. The kings of Babel, the first one was Nebuchadnezzar. He was the first king of Babel. Then was Evil Merodach, was the second king after him. And then we had Belshazzar. Nebuchadnezzar reigned for 45 years. Evil Merodach reigned for 23 years. And Belshazzar reigned for 3 years, I believe. So guys, write this down. The first king was Nebuchadnezzar, the second one was Evil Merodach, and the third king was Belshazzar. Now, in Paras, we have the first one is Dariavesh, the second king is Koresh, and the third king is Achashverosh, and the fourth king is Dariavesh the second. Okay. Now, another thing that we need to know, and again, guys, I highly recommend you guys to write this down, have this organized in your head at least. That way these things go faster. There's another thing we need to know. There was the three last kings of Israel. The first one was Yehoiakim, then it was his son Yehoiachin with a nun safit. So the first one was Yehoiakim with a mem safit. Then Yehoiachin with a nun safit, and then Tzidkiyahu HaMelech. So Yehoiakim was Nichbash. Nebuchadnezzar conquered Yehoiakim. He put in place of Yehoiakim, he put in place Yehoiachin, and then he let him reign for 7 years. And then he in Israel, and then Nebuchadnezzar kicked out Yehoiachin, kicked him out of Israel and threw him into Babel, and left Tzidkiyahu, who was his cousin, the brother of his father Yehoiakim, left Tzidkiyahu to run over Jerusalem, and Tzidkiyahu reigned there for another 11 years, and then finally Nebuchadnezzar kicked him out as well. So there were basically 2 galuyot in that time period. The first one was Galus Yehoiachin, after 7 years from when Yehoiakim was killed and taken and conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, so he spent 7 years in Israel and then he was kicked out. And then 11 years later, there was the second Galus, the Galus of Tzidkiyahu. All right, now I'm going to go into the Gemara. If you guys have all that clear in your head, the Gemara should be much, much, much easier. Otherwise, well, may God have mercy. Okay, says the Gemara. It says in the Gemara, it says in the Megillah, that those days the king was Yushav, yeah? Getting used to being the king. It says the Gemara, wait, so Achashverosh already became for 3 years. Why was he Kesheves HaMelech? Omar Rove, my Kesheves. What does it mean, Kesheves? It doesn't mean that he became king. What does it mean? That's when he had Yishva Das in his 3rd year of becoming king. Since he became king in his kingship, let's call it, that's when he had Yishva Das. What was his Yishva Das? Okay. Omar, this is what Achashverosh said. Belshazzar Chishev v'ta'a. Ana choshavna v'lo ta'ina. Belshazzar. So it says in the book of Yirmiyahu, it says that the Jews were going to be in Galus for 70 years. Okay, they were going to go into Bavel, and they were going to be in Galus for 70 years. Now, when do these 70 years start? So there's a few ways to interpret, like we're going to see later on. The thing is that Belshazzar had his own calculations, and once he saw that the calculations were not correct, since 70 years had passed since Babel had happened, he then made a party and was happy, and then he got killed. So Achashverosh was very, very worried. So Achashverosh said he was wrong. He made a mistake. That's why. Sorry, not that he made a mistake, but that Achashverosh was worried that Belshazzar's math was wrong, that he started counting the 70 years from the wrong timeline. So Achashverosh had his own calculation, and only in his 3rd year of kingship did that calculation finish, and then he said, oh my God, nothing happened to me, the Jews are still in my possession. That means that the prophecy must be wrong. So now the Gemara is going to explain what was Belshazzar's prophecy of math, how did he do his math, how was he wrong, and then how did Achashverosh do his math, and how was he wrong. So, first of all, what did Belshazzar do? Belshazzar. Maihi. It says like this. It says in the Yirmiyahu, it says God said to the Jews through Yirmiyahu Navi that I will redeem you guys out of Bavel after 70 years. And it says it says that I will once you guys are out of Jerusalem 70 years. So, Chashov 45 Nebuchadnezzar. Take 45 years of Nebuchadnezzar that he was a king. ו-20 utlat de'evil merodach, the next king after him of Babel. V'tarti didei Hoshivim. Since the counting starts from when? From when the first king of Babel became the first king of Babel. Because before the king of Ashur ran Babel. Nebuchadnezzar took it from the king of Ashur. So that's when we start counting. Since the verse says in Yirmiyahu Navi, it says, and repeating what the verse says, it says, Ki lefi milot lebavel shivim shana. We start counting from when Babel was created, it was made a country, 70 years ahead of that time. So take 45 years of Nebuchadnezzar, plus 23 years of Evil Merodach, which is 68, plus 2 years of Belshazzar himself, okay? Hoshivim. What did he do? What did Belshazzar do when he noticed that the math of the Jews was wrong, or wasn't going to happen? He took the kelim of his mikdash and he started using them in his own party. Okay? Says the Gemara, wait, Nebuchadnezzar, now the Gemara first of all want to know, how do we know that Nebuchadnezzar ran the country for 45 years? So they're basing their math upon him being a king for 45 years. How do we know this? Says the Gemara, so the Gemara, Galu b'sheva, Galu b'shmone. It says that the Jews were thrown out of Israel on the 7th year, not the 8th year. Galu b'shmonaesre, Galu b'chaesre. So the Gemara's going to explain. What does it mean they got out of the 7th year, 8th year, 18th year, 19th year? Galu b'sheva lekibush Yehoyakim, which is Galut Yehoyachim. Again, what we explained earlier is that Nebuchadnezzar conquered Yehoyakim. Conquered him. Then Nebuchadnezzar put Yehoyachin, his son, in charge instead. Yehoyachin was running Israel for 7 years. Then he was kicked out of Israel. So, and put into Babel. So 7 years. So the Golus happened 7 years from when? From when Yehoyakim, the father, was conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. That's when the first Golus happened, the Golus of Yehoyakim, which happens to be the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar, of his kingship. The 7th year, when the Jews got kicked out of Israel, which was the 7th year from when Yehoyakim was conquered, was also the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar's kingship. Now, next piece. Galu b'shmonaesre. So now when we say that there was another Galus on the 18th year, right? 18th year of what? 18th year lekibush Yehoyakim, right? Which means 11 more after Yehoyachin, which is Galus Tzidkiyahu, Shi Chaesre, which also happens to be the 19th year of the kingship of Nebuchadnezzar. And how do we know that Nebuchadnezzar, his kingship started a year before he conquered Yehoyakim? So the second year is when he conquered Yehoyakim. That's why we count always a year more for Nebuchadnezzar. So guys, during the first Galus, in Yehoyachin's Galus, how old was Nebuchadnezzar's kingship? 8 years old. Now look at this. The next verse it says, ויהי ב-37 שנה בגלות יהויכין מלך יהודה ב-12 חודש ב-25 לחודש נשא אביל מרדכי מלך בבל בשנת מלכותו את ראש יהויכין מלך יהודה ויוצא אותו מבית הכלוא. So this verse is saying that 37 years after the Galus of Yehoyachin, Evil Merodach was anointed as king. So guys, how much is 30 Tamneo Tlasim Vesheva, right? 38 plus 7 is how much? 38 since we count 38 years since of the Galus of Yehoyachin and the 7 years of Yehoyachin himself. How much is that? So we have 45 years in total of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, we've already established Nebuchadnezzar's part. Now what about the next one? Evil Merodach. Be'esrin class, Evil Merodach. So the Gemara is a Gemara. It's a Gemara. So also we know that he was a king for 23 years. So we're already at 68. Now what do we know from 69 and 70? Utarti the day of El Shatar Hashivin. Belshazzar, not El Shatar. Sorry, Belshazzar Hashivin. So now we have 70 years. And this was Belshazzar's mouth. So he counted the 70 years from the kingship of Nebuchadnezzar all the way to him. And this is what Daniel said to Belshazzar. What happened to him because he was mishtamish in the killing of his mikdash? That the Persians killed him at nighttime in his sleep. What happens afterwards with Daryavish and Daryavish and the Koresh took over afterwards in Babel. Okay. So what happened? Now we're going back to our story with Achashverosh. So what did Achashverosh say about this? What did Achashverosh have to say about this whole thing? He was mistaken. Belshazzar was miscalculated, so he was arrogant, stam. The 70 years, he started counting way too early. He misunderstood the verse. We have 2 extra years, and those 2 extra years is what we add up in order to make it 7. So we lessen 72 minus 2, and it's 70 years exactly. Also, Daniel was wrong about his math when he was planning the 70 years. Because he had to really do even to figure it out, which means that he had mistakes previously. So the math was also pretty complicated even for Daniel, for us. Ask the Gemara, wait, the verses go against each other. So one verse says we started counting from the times of Babel, actually. We started counting from the times of Babel, that was many, many years before the actual Chovos Yerushalayim. Really, the times that God said 70 years, the first prophecy was actually referring to the Pkida, when the king Daryavish, I believe, or Koresh, would tell the Jews, go up to Israel and build a Beis Hamikdash. So the Pkida, the allowance to build the Beis Hamikdash, happened actually many years before the actual redemption of the Jews from Achashverosh. Okay. Final piece. Ask the Gemara, wait, Koresh Mashiach, was Koresh Mashiach? Was he anointed with the anointment of the oil of Mashiachut that the kings have? God said to the Mashiach, Koresh. I'm sad about Koresh. Why? I said to him, he was supposed to do all the actions and bring all the Jews back to Israel. What did he say instead? Like, you guys do the work by yourself and you guys go to Israel, it's not my problem. Take care of business. So guys, this is the end of Daf Yud Aleph and Masechet Megillah.